Broadcasting from the Ante Up studio, it's the longest running poker podcast for the everyday poker player with your host, Joe Scale.
Hello, A-Team. It's Friday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Hope you're wearing your green. Speaking of that, though, did you know you can show your support for Ante Up with apparel and mugs and wall art, all the things you may want to represent Ante Up Nation? I'll put a link in the show notes. I'm still tweaking the details and the artwork that's out there, but I wanted to get it out for you guys. But you can also go to anteupmagazine.com and click on shop. That'll take you there as well. These next few months are going to be super busy. I'm going to be out and about a lot, and I hope that I can meet a lot of you during those times. So keep listening and checking out the social media pages to keep up with where we are. But for now, we have a podcast to do, so let's get on with the show.
Find out what conversations are happening around the poker table with Table Talk.
All right, here we are back around the poker table with Mike. Mike, how are you doing?
I am doing fine.
Good deal. Well, we're recording this on Thursday to release it on Friday, but that means that today is Papes. Are you going to join me in some Papes tonight?
Yes, sir. I think I will.
Tonight is stud high-low. So I'm excited. I'm excited that it's anything other than Hold'em.
Just a chance to play poker.
Exactly. And speaking of which, I played my first game in a while. I finished 9th, so I didn't make any money. But I got to play, and that's good. Loved it.
That's great. I'm glad you got to play finally. I mean,
I know.
Well, I played last weekend too.
Yeah. How did you do?
We ain't gonna talk about that. We're gonna go ahead and let you finish talking about yours. On my game, defecation hit the rotary oscillator. Hit the fan, buddy. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like neither one of us had a winning session, but I mean, I had fun playing for the first time in forever. I just to be able to throw some cards again for a while was awesome.
Yes, sir.
But it does bring me to a point, and I want to see what you think about this too. I know we had talked about a poll question, but
yeah.
What do you think about this for a poll question? Because when I go back and I look at how I played, I definitely had some leaks in my game for sure. So what if we did a poll question that's what's your biggest leak in poker?
Okay.
We could give some lists here. Playing bad starting hands maybe, or chasing too much, chasing draws too much, going on tilt maybe, or not being aggressive enough, which I think that was not being aggressive enough was definitely, or at least pre-flop not being aggressive enough was my biggest problem, I think, in the game.
Yep. I could understand that.
So what do you think? You think that would be a good poll question this week?
Yeah, that'd be a good one. That way we can kind of get an idea where everybody's weaknesses are. I can answer that. I can answer mine real quick. All of the above.
All of the above. The one that we did before was where do you listen to your podcast? And we had a really good response. I did 2 separate ones. One was on Facebook and the other one was on Twitter. And
yeah,
I think we pretty much called what the number one place would be.
I bet it's Apple.
Yeah, Apple Podcasts.
Yes. On
Facebook, 51% of the people listen to it on the Apple Podcasts. But on Twitter, almost 78% of the people listen to it on Apple Podcasts.
A lot of iPhones out there.
Yeah, a lot. Well, yeah, there are a ton of iPhones out there. Next on Facebook was Other, which they didn't really list what their others were. So I would be interested if people would let me know what those other ones are.
Okay.
One person on Twitter said Overcast. So there you go. Then Spotify was next with 14% on Facebook and 17% on Twitter. and then Stitcher
Okay.
bringing up the rear with 7% on Facebook and almost 6% on Twitter.
There you
So
go.
there you go. All right. With all that done, I've got a question for you, Mike.
Okay.
Phil Hellmuth is selling his house in Vegas.
Oh, God, poor Phil. It's always Phil. We need to pick on somebody.
It's true. It is always Phil. But he bought this house in Vegas mainly for him to just live in while he was out there, like World Series, a poker time, or whatever. But it ends up that he stays at the Aria whenever he goes out there, so he doesn't need it. Here's a little bit about the house. It's listed as a vintage 3-bedroom home built in 1974. It's in a gated community. It's 1,672 square feet. Overlooks the second green, has a bedroom balcony, 2-car garage, and a swimming pool.
Holy crap.
How much do you think it's going to be? What's it listed at?
Well, I don't know anything at all about prices in Vegas, but I expect they got to be high. So it would probably, just listening to that, it would sell for. So let's go with 1.75 million.
It's only listed at 525,000.
Good gracious, it needs painted.
I was shocked.
You get one of them shows in there. What do you call it? Let's flip this house.
Yeah. I seriously was shocked.
Well, Joe, you ought to buy that.
I know, right?
Ante Up home. Good gracious.
Speaking of Ante Up, we've got one more thing that we're close to launching. Podcast was first.
Oh, man, this is exciting.
And now we're shooting for this April 1 deadline of getting the magazine relaunched. It's going to be out there as a digital magazine, so it'll look a little bit different, but it's definitely going to be on the website. We're going to have a lot of different ways that people can access it. It's going to be easy to share. So keep your eye out for that. And then as we get closer, we'll start releasing some of the ways that you'll be able to find it. Thank you already to all the people that have contributed. I'm excited to get it out there.
Yes, that's awesome. Hey, real quick, let me throw this in because I know that you're trying to keep this at a limited time.
Okay.
But I just wanted to talk about rivers real quick. This past weekend, and I don't want to go in debt about anything, but guys, I'm going to tell you about this hand. Mikey went down there and I was doing fine. I was looking down there, my stack kept growing, and it go down a little bit, and it kept growing and go back down. I was ordering a drink or two. The lady said, "What kind of drink you want?" And I told her, I like mixed drinks, half ginger ale, half Coke. That's my mixed drink. Well, there was this guy at this table that they set me at, and he had a stack. He must have had $3,000, $4,000 in chips at a 1-3 table.
Wow.
I knew he'd been there for a little bit. So here I'm coming in with my 500, and I'm going to get swamped. Well, I watched him for over an hour pushing people around. And I mean, and that you can with a stack like that. And like I said, about an hour in with him, and I got pocket aces.
Hey.
Now I'm looking at, there's $24 in the pot.
Okay.
And this guy bets $90, raises $90.
He didn't want anybody else in his pot.
And I put him on a pair of 10s or a pair of 9s or something.
Okay.
So I said, I'm all in. His eyes got real big. He looked at me, and it was, I should call time. 10 minutes. He thought about it.
Yeah, definitely would have called clock.
And he finally said, "I'll call."
Okay.
And he whipped out a pair of queens.
Yep.
And I whipped out a pair of aces. His face dropped. Flop comes out. Deuce 7 queen. My face dropped. Turn comes out. Ace.
Hey.
Ace. I was smiling again. So on the river, he hit quads.
Wow. Another queen come out on the river. Wow.
Stood up, lost my 500 to him. I'd been there for 3.5 hours. I got in my car and drove all the way back home. 3-hour drive home almost. That was it. And it was for 3 days before I called you, wasn't it?
It was.
Joe's texting me, Mike, you all right? Have you gotten over that? I didn't even want to text back and say no. Anyhow, that's how it goes sometimes, guys. I'm gonna ask Bob to play a hand with me.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll split the pot.
Right? Yeah. Well, Mike, take it easy. It's been a while now. Hopefully you've gotten over it.
I have.
That's good. That's good. Okay, Mike. Well, I appreciate you doing this with me again this week, and we'll talk again next week.
I'll see you on Papes tonight.
Now it's time for Call the Floor with Elliot Schechter.
Elliot Schechter is the poker room manager for Rivers Casino in Schenectady, New York. He joins us each week to say how he would rule on situations that come up in your games, and he is with me again this week. Hey, Elliot, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well today, thanks. How you doing?
I am doing well. Baseball season is in full swing. I know you said you were a baseball fan.
Yes. Can't wait. The World Baseball Classic is going to be very exciting this year.
Yeah. I just was checking the scores a little bit ago with that. So very exciting. My favorite time of year.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, we talked a little bit last week about the Electric City tournament series that you guys are having there at the Rivers. I'm especially excited to play the Rivers Revival, so I'm going to be coming out to play that one and a few others. But what else should we all be looking at? And tell us a little bit about the discounted room rates that you mentioned last week as well.
All right. Well, we've got something for everybody. The opening event is a multi-flighted $400 buy-in mystery bounty tournament. And the mystery bounties will take effect in the money and will range all the way up to $10,000.
Wow.
Just for eliminating one player. That should be pretty fun. We're expecting a really good crowd. We've got a ladies-only event on tap, $160 buy-in, 5K guarantee. That'll take place on Sunday the 16th. Wednesday the 19th, $160 buy-in, 5K guaranteed seniors event, although we should easily get enough players 55 and older for that event to triple the guarantee. That should be a pretty popular event.
Nice.
We're doing a shoe event, 4 games of limit poker, stud, hold'em, Omaha, and stud high-low.
Yeah.
Don't forget the hotel rate. Incredible hotel rate. We have a nice boutique hotel here on property, 160 rooms. But during the tournament, with the code 4ACE23, so 4ACE23, you can reserve $88 room nights here at the Rivers, which is an unheard of rate.
Yeah. All right. That's good. Well, I appreciate you catching us up on that. Let's jump into the Call the Floor this week. And we got a Call the Floor sent in by Amanda Mills. And this gets to be a little long here, so hopefully we can all keep up as we go through this. She says, we are playing a regional tournament of a free poker league. We are in the later stages of a tourney, just near the bubble. There are 6 people at our table. Villain number 1 is second to act and goes all in. It folds to villain number 2 on the big blind, who goes deep into the tank. We can see he has a tough decision. Villain number 1 seems confident. Villain number 2 talks to himself, runs things around. Eventually, someone calls clock. With time running down, he throws a chip in. Immediately, villain number 1 says aces. But he said it a bit like, aces? Meaning, you got aces? You can probably see where this is going. Board runs out, king, 10, 3, 6, queen, and villain number 2 mumbles under his breath and throws his cards into the muck. Although he did that, you can still clearly see which 2 cards are his. Dealer starts pushing his chips toward villain number 1. I ask him to show, and he ignores me. I then said, wait, you said you had aces. Villain number 1 again is silent. The dealer seems a bit confused. He did say aces, he said. Villain number 1 is still silent but is getting squirmy, and I can just tell he just doesn't have aces. Villain number 2 notices too and starts asking the guy what he had. It doesn't matter what I had. You mucked. I then say, calling your hand and lying is against the rules. Villain number 1 says, no, I was asking if he had aces. Again, silence. Dealer says he honestly doesn't know what to do because villain number 2 mucked his hand, so he cannot win anyway. Villain number 2 said he had 7-7, or specifically 7 of hearts, 7 of spades, and villain number 1 says it doesn't matter, so I asked for the tournament director. People are starting to get upset because I'm slowing the action and blinds are going up. Tournament director eventually comes and they too don't know. They ask us to wait. People are even more upset because more time is wasted. They come back saying that there is a rule that you cannot say that you have something when you don't. And villain number 1 is then asked to show his hand or lose the pot. To everyone's surprise, he shows 4-4. I then mention we can see the 2 cards that villain number 2 mucked. I say I followed them as he mucked, and they are at the side of the main pot. Flores says that unless they happen to be exactly what the guy said it was, money will be given to villain number 1, but he will get a penalty. Not sure what that would be. He flips the 2 cards over, and sure enough, they are the 7 of hearts, 7 of spades. Villain number 2 wins the hand. Villain number 1 is eliminated, and on his way out the door says I really should learn to mind my own business. I know you've talked about something similar, but since I am not in the hand, what is my responsibility there? Whew.
Oh, this is a hell of a whopper here. Truly a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Well, apparently this league has a rule in place where intentionally misleading the other players about the contents of your hand at showdown is not allowed. And that's basically a universal rule. It's not unique to this league. Lying to induce other players to discard their hands is considered neither cricket nor poker, but also is subject to penalty. And I don't have mercy for people who try to, once again, win the pot by not having the best hand at showdown. If you make it to showdown, your cards will determine who wins the pot and nothing else.
Right.
So let's get back to this. His resistance to turning over his hand is obviously the dead giveaway, and you read that very correctly. Your insistence on following through is impressive and admirable, and I appreciate that. The result is correct. And once again, the pot made it to the winning player, and that's the ultimate object of any organization or room running a game or tournament. So the result was good. But how we get to the result is certainly what matters. Identifiable and retrievable is certainly an ongoing theme on Call the Floor lately.
Yeah, it is.
And that applies here too. Those cards were identifiable and retrievable. Everybody, including you and at least one other person, knew exactly which 2 existing cards they were and where they were located. They were identifiable and retrievable under any set of circumstances you've described. The person making the decision, the floor, was not 100% correct, only because of the order. If the identifiable and retrievable cards are in fact not the hand that the guy claimed, they wouldn't be the winning hand, and therefore it takes care of itself. There was no reason for the floor to make his statement like that. Once again, some things are self-evident, and turning over a hand, if it's not the cards that would win the hand, the pot's not going to get pushed that way anyway. He didn't need to tell us that they had to be those specific cards.
Right.
And certainly in a situation like this, I'm going to make more allowances. This guy not only intentionally misled about his hand, but did everything he could to make sure that nobody was going to make him turn his cards over.
Yeah.
This was an obvious angle shot and should not be accepted in any situation, and certainly not here. So he lashed out at you yet again for not minding your business. Well, bad news for this guy. Everything that happens in this tournament is every player's business. And fairness is supposed to be the number 1 objective here.
I think that kind of points also to the aggravation with the rest of the table because the blinds are going. And I understand the blinds going up, but you want to see the right outcome here. And also, I know that it's a free poker league, so things are a little bit more relaxed, but I feel like the tournament directors should have known the rules a little bit better there as well. To kind of shrug and say, I don't know. And then have to go and look it up. I mean, kudos to them for
Right.
searching out the right answer, but maybe they should have been a little bit more well versed on that as well.
Well, you can only memorize so many things, and certainly a lot of this stuff never has to get applied when things are going swimmingly. So I won't put the blame on them. They could have stopped the clock at least for a little while.
Yeah.
Held up the action on the other tables, because this, obviously being so close to the money, this is not an unimportant event, this particular hand.
Right.
This impacts everybody who's remaining, To pause the clock and untie this knot would have been much more preferable than letting the clock run so close to the bubble.
Right. That makes sense.
Nobody else is going to object. Let's face it. If you're not playing a hand, you can't lose.
That's true.
On the other hand, the bar might object. They might have a closing time and they need this thing over with.
Well, yeah.
That being said, there are certain times where you do need to stop the clock, and it should be an exceptionally rare occurrence. But this is one of those times. You're already close to the bubble. The clock's going to get stopped anyway for hand play.
Yeah.
Putting a pause on it to untie this to make sure the right result, because this ended up with a player elimination, which obviously at that stage of the tournament is incredibly important.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with it. You got to do it sometimes. You hate to do it. You try to do anything to avoid it. Sometimes you just have to.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. All right, Amanda. Well, kudos to you also for sticking it out and making sure that the right play was made there and the right decision was made, I should say. And thank you, Elliot, for sifting through all of that.
Quite welcome. That was a fun one.
Yeah. And if you have a call the floor that you would like for Elliot to go over, then send it to podcast@anteupmagazine.com.
Let's break it down with Hand of the Week.
All right, we've got another Hand of the Week this week, and Patrick's in here to join us once again. How you doing, Patrick?
I am doing well. Glad to be back again.
Glad to have you. How many wins have we had now?
Have I had any wins? None. Well, no. Actually, no. I lost last hand. That was terrible. So I'm quite looking forward to this one, and we'll see. We'll see what kind of cards we're given to start with, but I don't have any wins just yet. So all right, I'm down in the dumps.
See if we can change it this time. The hand this week is sent in by Lucas Teague. He sent in a hand before, but he says, I appreciate the previous hand breakdown and enjoy the new format where the novice player going through the hand first before getting thoughts from Joe afterward. I'm really curious to see how a novice does with this hand. Well, I really appreciate that feedback, Lucas. So in this hand, Villain 1 has everyone else in the hand covered with 1,335 in his stack. He doesn't say what we're playing, though, whether it's 1-2 or 1-3 or 2-5. It doesn't say. It folds to Villain 1 in the cutoff, and he opens to $20. Villain 2 is a drunk kid in the small blind, and he calls. We are in the big blind with the King of Diamonds, Queen of Hearts. What do you do with it?
Did he say what our stack was at the time?
He did not say what our stack is.
Okay.
Just that Villain has the table covered.
Okay. All right. So Villain comes out, opens with 20, and then you said the drunk kid called, right?
The drunk kid called.
All right. So, this is a strong opening. I'm going to call, to be honest with you, right out the gate, and we'll kind of see how it goes from there.
Okay. Well, Lucas decided that this was going to be a good spot to squeeze. So he raises to 100, but they both call. So we didn't squeeze anybody out.
We didn't squeeze anyone. Although I will say Lucas is, seeing that hand, I was thinking the same thing, but maybe it was the last couple losses I've taken these hands that I was a little tentative. So, I like how he played that, but the fact that they both call, that's now very interesting to go to the flop.
So now we've got 300 in the pot.
Okay.
The flop is the Queen of Spades, 5 of Diamonds, 4 of Hearts.
All right. So top pair.
Yep.
Go back.
So the small blind leads out for 125.
So there's 300 in the pot, 125. If it's me in this instance, I would have, playing his hand, I would go ahead and call that.
Okay. So you call, and Lucas decided he would call that.
Okay.
Villain 1 also comes along. So there's now 675 in the pot. The turn is the 2 of clubs. Now the small blind slows down. He checks. What do you do with that?
So if he slows down there, he had jacks maybe or kings, I guess, he could have aces too, but he's slowing down because you've got, possible straight draw on the board. That's a thought. That's my thought process. The way that I'm looking at it then is like he had a big pocket pair, didn't match it up. He's probably got kings or aces, more than likely, maybe jacks at the most. He sees that come out, he slows down.
Okay.
So I would probably still bet. I don't know what Lucas ended up doing, but I would probably bet somewhere 30, 40, something like that. and push it a little bit more with top pair still.
Yeah, I mean, there's 675 in the pot.
Yeah, so maybe even more than that. Probably 50 to 75 at least at that instance, just to keep pushing to see where everyone's at.
Right. I mean, I feel like, and usually I don't say anything until the end, but I just feel like this is a good this is a good moment.
Let the novice get a little bit of teaching. It's all right.
If there's 675 in the pot, what are you learning from a bet that's not even a third?
One. Yeah. That's fair. That's actually a very good point. So if I want to learn something on that one, you're probably 150, 200, something like that.
Yeah, I'm going at least 250 to 275. Okay. Probably go 300 if I'm going to bet.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise, I'm not saying that you have to put money in there. A check may be fine, but if you're going to bet, then it should definitely be a bet that you're going to at least learn something with.
Okay.
So with that in mind, Lucas bets 500.
Oh, attaboy, Lucas.
And Villain 1 calls, but the small blind now folds.
Okay.
So now we've got 1,675 in the pot, and the river is the 9 of clubs.
All right.
So you've got King, Queen offsuit. The board is the Queen of Spades, 5 of diamonds, 4 of hearts, 2 of clubs, 9 of clubs. What are you going to do?
So my thought process is, so small blind just left, and they more than likely had a top pair, maybe even above mine. Unless Villain 1 is sitting there, like I said, with 3-6 in hand. I mean, I'm probably going to push again. If Lucas said our last bet was 500, I mean, I'm easily doing probably that again, or maybe just less, 350 to 500, something around there. I'm still thinking I've got top pair against the Villain. At that point, I don't think he's got anything out there. I think he was rolling with a big stack.
Yeah, I mean, Ace 3 maybe makes sense, maybe,
True.
But that's still, he's really got to be pushing to play that with a raise pre-flop.
Yeah.
But he was in the cutoff, so maybe 3-6 makes no sense to me. So really, you're thinking only one hand that looks like it's going to make a straight for sure. So you bet how much?
I would say 400.
Okay.
So a little less than the last bet, but still a significant portion of the pot, because pot was 1,600, so that's a quarter of the pot.
Yeah.
That would be probably my mindset is if he's in, he's in, and if he thinks he's got the better hand, then he's going to come over the top.
Well, okay, let me ask you, that was where I was going to go with that. What would you do? Let's just pretend, and I haven't even looked to see what he did yet, but let's say you bet 400 and the other player jams on you.
In that instance, I'm probably kicking myself, but I'm probably going to run on that instance, because if he's coming back on top, it could be a great bluff, sure. Or he could have just been kind of riding over there and he was sitting on ace 3, or he does have pocket kings or aces. And in that instance, it's got me.
Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if you bet 400 into me with that much in the pot,
you're coming over top.
It doesn't matter what cards I have, I'm shoving.
Well, in that instance, I don't know. See, I'm learning on the go as we go here. But what ended up happening in the hand?
Lucas checked, and the Villain jams for his remaining 610.
Ouch. Did Lucas walk?
Lucas,
because in that instance I'm walking. Before you answer, if I did that, if I checked and he pushes, I'm walking. I lost a ton in that, but maybe learned something from him, how he played it. But
here's the thing. You can't have too much in your stack because he had you covered, right?
Yeah.
This is a good point that I didn't even think about until just now. But if he shoves for his last 610, there's no way you have more than 2 or whatever, because he had everybody covered with his stack.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I guess my thought is 610 into 1,600. I feel like you've got to make that call. But
okay.
I feel like, let me just tell you what happened.
Yeah.
He called.
Lucas did? Okay.
Lucas called, and he's good with top pair, as the Villain had ace 5 offsuit.
Oh, that's a big call from Lucas. I definitely would have played the hand differently at times, But if I'd have played it similarly up until that point, yeah, I guess that's the other thing too. That you did make a great point though. With where we were at chips wise, yeah, you've got to make that call.
Yeah.
At that point, you absolutely have to make that call. Honestly, I probably would have been more scared of the small blind than I guess it was the drunk kid. If he'd have, as strong as he came out, I probably would have been more afraid of him throughout the hand.
I feel like, first of all, that's some terrible play by the villain. Ace 5 should have been a check back.
Yeah.
Now maybe he's thinking you have that queen, which is, makes sense.
Yeah.
And he's thinking still the only way he can win is to shove in. But yeah, I'm not sure how he even got to that point. I feel like that hand never, ever, ever, ever should have made it to the river.
Okay, great point. Never should have saw the end of it. Not a chance.
It's ridiculously easy fold with a 3-bet pre-flop.
Yeah.
Like, Lucas came over the top. You've got ace 5. Throw it away.
Yeah.
Like, the villain played horribly in this instance, I feel like.
Coming from a novice, let me ask you a question. In games that we are playing, once you get a feel, or you think you get a feel of some of the other players, when you have, ace 5 and unsuited, suited doesn't matter necessarily. I guess it does, but in that instance, you get a feel for the players and you have been kind of pushing the stacks and you are the villain. With an ace at least in hand, do you at least push the betting like he did just to see the flop? Is it worthwhile to stay as the villain? Like if you're
asking,
if you're the top stack and I am kind of pushing the betting throughout and I'm still staying the top stack, if I get an ace 5 or an ace whatever offsuit, is it worthwhile to see that through to bet with them, to call that, to see a flop, to maybe you pair up your ace or something else, but to at least see how the other hands are playing, if they don't keep going. If you're in that spot.
You're talking about pre-flop.
Pre-flop. Someone bets and
absolutely not.
Okay. Because you're wasting chips.
Yeah.
Okay, fair. That's fair. Yeah.
If I'm putting the chips in first, fine.
Yeah.
But if I'm calling, no way.
Okay.
No way.
Good to know.
From Lucas's standpoint, I don't like the bet size on the turn. I feel like 500 is way too much. I feel like I hate the villain's call of that bet even more though. But if Lucas wanted to get to the river and shove, then he could still do that with a smaller bet there. I feel like you still have the ability to bluff some of your range there if that's what you want to do. But I just feel like 500 was too much. Start to finish, though, played pretty darn awful from the villain's point of view. That's what I took from this.
Yeah, bottom line is, and Lucas took him down, so that is good.
The turn sizing was really the only mistake there from Lucas's side. I feel like maybe he had a read on the opponent that we don't know about, but if that's the case, then let me know. But I feel like it was the villain's mistakes that allowed you to make some money on that one. But at least you made the money.
That's exactly right at the end of the day. And you know what, Joe? I'm counting this as a win for me, so this is my first win on the cap. So
there you go.
I'm counting it as a
win. There we go. All right. Well, Patrick, again, thanks so much for doing this with me. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
I am too. Yeah, I'm looking forward to many more as I'm walking back on from you guys. So
count me in. Sounds good. And if you have a hand of the week that you would like Patrick and I to break down, send it to podcast@anteupmagazine.com.
The question is, how you running?
This week I'm joined by Brad Smith with the Casino Collectibles Association show. They're going to be at South Point Casino June 15th through the 17th. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here, and it's good to hear Ante Up is alive and kicking.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, my first question, before we get too far in here, the first question to everyone in this segment is, how you running?
Well, frankly, I'm running pretty well. I'm retired. I've got a dream job as the public relations director for the Casino Collectibles Association. Instead of working for clients, I'm now working for my hobby, I've been doing this for about 3 years. I'm working on a big book project. It's confidential at this time, but I think it'll be very interesting to the poker community eventually, and I'll let you know about that when the time's right.
I was going to say, when that comes up, let me know, because that sounds intriguing to me for sure.
Very good. So let me tell you a little bit about our association and our show.
Yes, please.
Which, especially to the poker community, I mean, it's very fortuitous that this show is June 15th through the 17th, and it's always in June. This is the Casino Collectibles Association's 30th annual show. It's always in June, which is WSOP time.
Right.
So for all of your listeners who are out there for the WSOP and they're looking for something inexpensive and fascinating to do, come on out to the South Point and check out our show. It is the 15th through the 17th, which is a Thursday and a Friday and a Saturday.
Right.
This kind of is a club that started out with casino chip collectors and kind of morphed into people who collect any and all kinds of casino memorabilia.
Okay.
We expect to have over 50 dealers at this show. And if you come to the show, what you're going to get to see is, well, expect to see everything and anything casino and gambling related. Gaming,
okay.
Tables, chips, slot cards, slot machine tokens, dice, playing cards, matchbooks, menus, dinnerware, swizzle sticks, postcards, antique gaming machines, souvenirs, casino photos, you name it. If it's got a casino name on it, somebody has collected it, and it'll be there.
Right. Well, I know at least one, and I've had conversations with one of our listeners that collects these old chips and things like that. So I know they'll find it fascinating. I've always found the history of gambling in general just fascinating. So I think this is something I never knew it existed, but now that I know, I can't wait to see it. So I know that there's an auction in this toward the end of it or at the end of it, but are these items for sale throughout as well?
They're all the items that I mentioned that the dealers have, for the most part, are available for sale.
Okay.
We encourage people to, if you have things like some of your collection, bring them in. You've got all these experts in one place. They'd be happy to help you evaluate what you've got. If you have something you want to sell, bring it in. They're buying. If you just want to come in and browse around and see, it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah. And I imagine when you say 50 dealers, they're probably coming from all over the world, right?
Oh, that's true. Probably, well, the president of our club, as a matter of fact, is a Brit. He's in the UK, and he's also a dealer, and he'll be there, and we have some from other countries as well.
Okay. What's the furthest you've ever seen somebody come from?
Probably, to the best of my knowledge, now I've only been doing this for 3 out of the last 30 years, so I'm not familiar with all these guys, but I think most of the dealers are U.S. dealers. I think the furthest one to come is probably David Sprague from the UK.
Okay. Well, the sheet that I saw, you had some interesting guests, too. Tom McAvoy caught my eye because he won the World Series of Poker in '83. But what were some of those other guests? Tell me about those.
Well, part of my job as public relations director is to try and attract as many of these I call meet and greet VIPs as possible to come to our show. They come with the understanding they're just going to be there for a couple of hours, and we publicize when they're going to be there, but anybody who comes to the show can go up and talk to them.
Okay.
You'll be able to go up and talk with Tom McAvoy, for example. He's a fascinating guy. He is the first winner of the WSOP main event to get there by winning a satellite.
Right.
He's also very instrumental in, when he won, they only paid 3 places, and he felt very strongly they needed to pay more, so that's part of the reason they do now. So more people would actually cash, and the more people that cash, the more interested, it started the WSOP forward momentum. He's also very instrumental in getting the WSOP to ban smoking.
Oh,
he's a fascinating
interesting.
guy.
Yeah.
Come and talk to him. We're going to have some other interesting folks too. We're going to have Nelson Sardini. He's a movie star, comedian, singer, dancer, Las Vegas entertainment legend. He's had association with all kinds of female leading ladies like Jane Mansfield, Judy Garland, Mae West, and Pia Zadora. Anybody who's familiar with casino chips will know the manufacturer name Paulson.
Right.
Well, Paul, the renowned Paulson Dyson chip maker, Paul Endy Jr., is going to be at the show. It was his father that was instrumental in starting that company. His father's name was Paul. He's a son, Paul's son. So
there you go.
He will be there. He's just published a book about his dad. He will be there as well. We're going to have another poker tale novelist by the name of Joan Destino. She wrote a novel called River Card. So all your poker fans, if they haven't heard of that, they should look that up because that's an interesting.
Okay.
A big part of we are a 401c3 organization, completely nonprofit, and part of that status is we have to provide and want to provide education on gaming history, for example.
Right.
So we will also have during this show 4 speakers, 3 of which have been lined up so far, and they will be giving 2-hour basically seminars that are free and open to the public. The show, by the way, is open to the public as well, but we do charge an admission to the show floor on Thursday of $10. On Friday, the admission is $5. And on Saturday, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., there is no admission.
Okay.
We will be publicizing when these seminars are going to be, but we have 3 of them lined up. Lynn Zook, she's going to do a presentation on the visionaries of the classic Las Vegas Strip. She's a historian and author. She has a book, as many do, called Gambling on a Dream, the Las Vegas Strip from 1930 to 55, and she's going to cover some of the pioneers like Billy Wilkerson and Benjamin Siegel, Milton Prell, some of those kind of guys.
Right.
We're going to have another seminar entitled A Striking Bit of History, All You Need to Know About Collecting Matchbook. There is a big matchbook club out there, and the president of that club, Denise McKinney, will be on hand to tell people, answer all their questions about dating, displaying, selling, shipping, storing, what matchbooks are all about.
Okay.
And then we have a fellow by the name of Richard Marcus. He's going to talk about the history of the most daring casino cheating techniques.
Oh.
He's got a couple of books too, but he's going to talk about these amazing cheating devices, how they were used, and how the casinos actually combated it. And he's got experience kind of on both sides of the table.
Okay.
He's a cheater himself, and then he worked for the casinos. And he'll talk about roulette tables to chip manipulation. So we've got a lot going on at this show.
Yeah, that's all fascinating. And I think I saw where there was some blackjack and poker tournaments at the end of the show as well.
Yes. Now, for a mere $35, you can join the Casino Collectibles Association, which would make you eligible to participate in our blackjack tournament, which is in one of the evenings. And Friday evening, we'll be holding our annual poker tournament.
Okay.
Now, we had a couple of guests 2 years ago that you might be familiar with. We had Linda Johnson and Jan Fisher.
Oh, okay.
They joined the club, and they participated in our poker tournament, and Linda actually won. And she was benevolent enough to donate her proceeds back to the coffers of the nonprofit organization, the CCA, which was wonderful.
Right. Okay. That's great. Like I said, at the beginning, this is all fascinating to me. I think that, seeing some of the displays, I can't even imagine some of that history, all of that being in one place at one time. That's got to be a sight to see.
Well, it's in the showroom that it's in is called Exhibit Hall C at the South Point Casino, which is out on Las Vegas Boulevard South.
Right.
Which, if you haven't been there, you need to, because they have one of the nicest poker rooms in town.
Yes.
So it's a big exhibit hall with lots of dealers and lots of excitement going on, and thousands upon thousands of examples of gaming and casino memorabilia.
Great.
It's very colorful and very exciting.
That's great. Well, it's June 15th through the 17th, right?
Correct.
Did I get that right? Okay. June 15th through the 17th, and at South Point Casino. But if you guys are down there for the WSOP, stop in there and see that, or make the trip specifically for this. I mean, I think I would do that anyway. So
a lot of people do.
Yeah.
We usually have about 4,000 to 5,000 people who attend the show over the course of the 3 days.
Okay, that's good. And is there anything else you want to tell everybody?
I think we've pretty much covered everything, other than, like you, many, if not most people, have never heard of the Casino Collectibles Association, but we have been around for 30 years, been putting on this show, not always in Las Vegas, but for the last 20 years or so, it's been in Vegas.
Okay.
I believe it was at the Aladdin a few times, and I don't remember some of the other locations, but it's been there.
Right.
And it's slowly but surely growing. And I think there is a lot of interest out there for collecting these kind of things. I know I started out as a casino chip collector when I got my first 50-cent chip at the Riviera in the early 1980s, and I've been collecting them ever since. And by hook or by crook, I found out that I wasn't the only nut out there that was collecting. There was a whole organization dedicated to it.
Yeah.
And I joined a long time ago, and then when I got to the point where I retired from my advertising and PR job, starting making suggestions to the club, they said, "Well, we need a new PR director. Why don't you help us out?" And I said, "Hey, I would love that." It had been on my bucket list for a long time to get out to the physical show. I just hadn't yet.
Right.
And I've been enjoying it ever since.
Yeah. Well, I think, most of the people that are involved in gambling of some kind, whether it be poker or blackjack or even slots, has some form of memorabilia that they hold on to and love, and expanding on that into this show. Obviously, you said it's been growing. That's the reason, because we all have some piece of it in our DNA, I think.
It's amazing the things that people collect.
Oh, yeah.
Especially related to gaming and casinos.
Oh, absolutely.
Ashtrays, swizzle sticks, antique gaming machines. You'll find a lot of them there.
Yeah.
Even the things that you would never think of, like the dice, the actual dies that were used to stamp on craps dice the name of the casino.
Okay.
People have collected those. People collect, slot cards.
Yeah.
People have collected the old tokens that they used to use in slot machines.
Yeah, I've got a jar with old slot machine coins.
Sure.
I didn't even mean to collect them. I just did.
Yeah, some people collected them by accident and then said, "Hey, I kind of like this. I'm going to get more."
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
And that's how it starts. Well, Brad, I really appreciate you taking the time to let everybody know about this, and let us know how the show goes, and we'll talk again.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for having me on. Glad to talk about it. And again, congratulations. Way to go, Ante Up.
Thank you.
It's time for Joe's One Outer.
A lot of people like to think luck has something to do with the way they are running at the tables. The number of times I have heard the phrase, "I'd rather be lucky than good," and I think they really mean it. It's where their mind's at the time. But what makes a great player? Are they really just more lucky than the rest of us? I mean, a lot of people seem to think so, so I decided to look up the definition of luck. Definition number 1, a force that brings good fortune or adversity. Definition number 2, the events or circumstances that operate for or against an individual. A force? What is that? I mean, look, I love Star Wars and all, but I don't believe that there's any mystical force hovering over my head when I go all in pre-flop with pocket kings and see my opponent turn over pocket aces, or vice versa. Events and circumstances seem more realistic. What are events and circumstances in poker? A hand is dealt. That's an event. You're under the gun with 7 deuce off. That's a circumstance. Of course, you fold because that event and circumstance didn't operate in your favor. But the next hand you get aces in the big blind and the button goes all in. Of course you call because that event and circumstance operated for you. But does this mean you're lucky or unlucky? There are a lot of quotes about luck. Luck is the byproduct of busting your fanny. I'm a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more I have of it. The only thing that overcomes hard luck is hard work. Do you see the theme here? The common denominator in all these quotes is hard work. Do you love playing poker? Do you work hard at it? Do you read and study? Do you analyze your play and look at what your opponents did? Maybe when you're on a downswing, luck has nothing to do with it. Maybe other people are just working harder than you. I understand not everyone has the ability to immerse themselves in poker. People have families, jobs, etc. I have my share of obligations. But if I want to win consistently, I definitely need to prepare. Here's another quote for you. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So many times people blame a poor run of cards on going broke, when in actuality, it was a lack of preparation coupled with maybe poor bankroll management. Prepare for every opportunity. If you want to be great at poker, you have to do this. Understand the game so you don't put yourself in tough spots or circumstances. Get in positive EV situations. And get your money in. Work on table selection. That's preparation. And get on tables with plenty of fish. That's opportunity. Every positive EV situation is an opportunity. You can't identify them unless you prepare. Sure, you will lose. There's always that 5% chance of your opponent hitting their out on the river. And one day, that card will hit. And again, and again. But it isn't bad luck. You've already done all you can. You worked hard, and if you work hard at poker, you will win. On the other side of that 5% chance is a 95% chance. Make sure the majority of your bets are on the good side of chance. Now, I'm not telling you to remove luck from your vocabulary. Keep it there, but change the definition. Make it mean something else. From now on, have good luck because you vow to work hard at poker and, more importantly, at everything else in life. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, and good luck. That's today's one-outer, and that's today's show. See you next week, A-Team, and until then, I'll see you at the tables.
The Ante Up Podcast is a production of AnteUpMagazine.com. Contact the show at podcasts@AnteUpMagazine.com or call the show at 540-339-7741. If you'd like to advertise, send an email to editor@AnteUpMagazine.com.